Hi everybody, it's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And I am in the Champagne region right now, and so I thought I'd give you a quick little overview, a little destination spotlight, if you will, for the Champagne region. And I know you're going to say to me, but Julia, you look like you're in front of like a gate. You're not in the vines. Like, what's up with that? Well, that's part of the thing you have to know about visiting Champagne. Yes, there are the gorgeous rolling hills with vines snaking down them and, little villages and stuff like that. That does exist, but that's actually not where most of the visiting is done. Most of the houses, and they're called houses here, have their production facilities that you want to visit and their cellars that you definitely want to visit in towns. And there are two particular towns that you need to be aware of. Also, these are both about an hour outside of Paris. Really easily done by a day trip. You don't have to come and spend the night here, but it is a really lovely area if you do want to come and spend the night. But the train is really easy to either town. So the first town that I'm in is Reims, and I do apologize because I know that sounds super obnoxious, but that's one of the few towns that I hate saying in English because it's Reims, and that just doesn't sound as pretty. So Reims is the larger of the two main cities that you want to focus your visit on, and it is much bigger. It's about 200,000 people apparently, and it was really heavily bombed during World War One. Actually, not World War Two, but World War One. So there are a lot more actually Art Deco buildings here, which is kind of interesting. But there are a lot more production houses here. Maybe not more, but more of the biggies that you've heard of. Like, for example, I am right in front of Veuve Clicquot, it's actually one of their old production facilities. It's this gorgeous mansion. I don't know if you can really get an idea of it. But this is apparently now where they just have functions and stuff like that. But Veuve Clicquot is here. Of course, now I'm forgetting all of them that are here. Mum is here. I'm totally blanking on what all the ones, but a lot of them are here. And they're actually also in the outskirts of town. They're not, right in town, and they're not also out in the vines either. They're sort of on the outer part of the of the central part of the city. And there are some beautiful mansions and beautiful facilities and amazing cellars. Like, we toured the Tattinger cellars, and had some tastings there, and that was so cool because those cellars are actually chalk mines. They took old chalk mines and then dug out from there, so you have these huge like chimneys, making these huge domed rooms in those cellars, and they were just massive and really cool. It's also the basement of an old monastery, one of the churches here in Reims that got completely destroyed in the revolution. Luckily for this town, the revolutionaries did not destroy everything because Reims is the site of the big, huge, giant, wonderful cathedral where all the kings and queens of France, kings, were crowned for the most part, like 30 some of them, a lot of them. It's also very religiously significant because Clovis was baptized, and also Joan of Arc brought Charles the Seventh, I think it is, during the 100 Years' War, so it's got a lot of historical significance. Now, Épernay is the other town, and it's just about a half an hour down the road, and it's much, much smaller, and it is much more in the vines and on the little river. It's much more quaint. It was not bombed nearly as much in World War One, or damaged. It was damaged, but not as much. And that's where you've got a whole, like they call it the Avenue of Champagne, and you've got a whole bunch of houses and producers right there. The big daddy there is Moet and Chandon. And we did a tour there, and it was fantastic. Those are some beautiful cellars. But all along that Avenue de Champagne, they have house after house after house. Paul Roger, I think Pommery. At the end of that avenue, they have a really cool, like, funky, almost Art Deco looking building with a big tower. It's for Castellan, which actually apparently is the one who makes Kirkland champagne. So at Costco, if you're buying Kirkland champagne, know that it is actually made in Épernay, which is the capital of Champagne. So you learn something new every day. Sorry, my arm is getting a little tired. Apologies. But so Épernay is definitely also a good choice. It's much, like I said, much smaller, much more sort of geared towards just the champagne industry. There's a champagne museum, there are union buildings for champagne growers and everything like that. And so it's definitely, if you're only coming to the region to focus on the drinking, then maybe consider staying in Épernay. Just know that you probably will want to have a car. Reims is much more the big city where you don't need a car. Tours run out of Reims. The TGV train comes straight in from Paris in less than an hour, actually. So Reims is really convenient for basing yourself out of. Now, there's one other place that I want to tell you about that you probably want to put on your radar, and that is, sorry, oof, my arm is tired. Sorry. Besides, seeing the different houses, which you do have to make reservations for, but there's a little village called Oakville that is a little bit famous, or very much famous in the Champagne region, because that is where a monk by the name of Dom Pérignon, which you probably will have heard of, lived and worked, and he was a monk in an abbey out there. And he worked for over 40 years perfecting the art of mixing champagne, balancing it together to get the same wonderful taste every year, year in and year out. And so that is where Dom Pérignon champagne comes from. And it's actually one of the brands. It's owned by Moet and Chandon, which obviously is part of the LVMH conglomeration of luxury brands. And so there are lots of kind of interpersonal brands and relationships. But in Oakville, you can go visit where Dom Pérignon worked, and you can see the church that a lot of the money that he made from making the champagne went to restoring the church. It's kind of a little wonky. It's kind of neat because it's really not that wealthy. It's not as glitzy and glammy as you would think for Champagne House. But it's beautiful. You can also apparently tour the actual abbey, but it's owned by the corporation, and so you have to make an appointment well in advance, and it's really specialized and stuff like that. So that is just a few little tips about the Champagne region. If you want to come and visit Madame la Veuve Clicquot, am I even saying that there? Yeah, Veuve Clicquot. Let me know and I'll help you out with a bit more details. That's it for this week. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.